China is loosening COVID restrictions. But after years of propaganda, people are still fearful, and Chinese hospitals are overwhelmed. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by MOVA globes. These are really amazing globes that spin on their own without cords or batteries. And whether you get this green and white antique model or one of their other great world maps designs, you can appreciate the beauty of our planet. For years, the Chinese Communist Party has pushed the narrative that Chinese people would die if they caught COVID, that the rest of the world was suffering dangerously, and that only China was safe because its zero COVID policy was the only option to survive. But the party changed its tune, like it always has.
China is the last country in the world still trying to completely eradicate COVID. But after months of harsh restrictions, some of the COVID lockdown barriers in China are starting to come down. This move by authorities comes just days after protests erupted across the country against Beijing's zero COVID policy.
State-run media now says COVID is not something to fear, and that the Omicron variant is far less deadly than previous strains. Wow, really? So glad that Chinese people endured being locked in their homes, forced into quarantine camps, getting beaten by security personnel, and watching their loved ones die, all because of a virus they didn't need to fear. I'd show you footage of all that, but YouTube would age restrict the evidence. Despite claims that China's easing up restrictions, the Chinese regime never said it's giving up on zero COVID. It's just optimizing with new measures. Shelley explained more in depth about these changes in an earlier episode. Though these policy changes sound good, they still give the party and local officials the power to force new lockdowns if things get high risk. If you want to learn more, check out that episode. The link is below. The latest measure to ease zero COVID is China axing its travel tracking app ahead of the Lunar New Year holidays. It's called the Communications Itinerary Card. It's a national app that tracks individuals' health statuses and display colors, green, orange, and red, to show whether users can leave their homes, use public transportation, and enter public places. People celebrated the end of the app and saw workers remove health QR code posters from public places. Some media outlets take this to mean China's dropping travel tracing. But hold your horses. When it comes to the Communist Party, you should know that they don't give up power that easily. The Communications Itinerary Card is only one of several tracking apps that have governed everyday life in China, with many people still using scanning systems run by their city or province to access local amenities and public buildings. According to some in China, this isn't affecting their daily life. They only had to use the national app when traveling, but they still have to use their local tracing app every day. The whole system is made up of a patchwork of tracking apps issued by different provinces and cities. Most restaurants in Beijing, for example, still require a negative test result obtained over the previous 48 hours, and rules are even stricter for government offices. Chinese protesters aren't stupid. They're aware that the easing of COVID restrictions doesn't address the main issues. They're angry that the government hasn't apologized, and probably never will, for its misstep, one that caused much unnecessary death and hardship. Many are also worried about how China's authoritarian system is leaving the country unprepared for the wave of COVID infections that's about to happen. China's overwhelmed healthcare system proves that to be the case. I'll tell you more after the break. Welcome back. China is easing up its zero COVID policies, but years of propaganda have paralyzed many people from living with COVID. So many are used to thinking that getting infected was almost like a death sentence. So even though top-level experts are going on national television to ease fears, many aren't convinced. It's just too sudden of a change.
But this is now happening. People are still afraid to go out. In Wuhan, where the first cases of COVID-19 were discovered, it's still mostly empty and business owners are worried.
When asked about plans to travel, one Chinese citizen said, "You must be kidding. I can barely summon enough courage to leave my house now. People are so afraid that they're rushing to stock up on antigen kits and medicine for fevers and the flu. Pharmacies are being hit by swarms of people. Delivery backlogs are piling up. And many places are already running out of stock. Even pharmacies in Hong Kong are getting emptied thanks to people buying up medicine to send back to the mainland. Online pharmacies are also running out of drugs and test kits too. Chinese state-run propaganda has also spent years promoting traditional Chinese medicine as a COVID treatment, specifically an herbal remedy called lianhua qingwen. So in many cases, that's one of the only medicines people can get. Even canned peaches are flying off shelves because people think they can help with COVID. Really? Canned peaches? Have you seen the sugar content in these things? You might not get COVID, but you'll definitely get diabetes. It's gotten to the point that producers now have to issue reminders that canned peaches aren't medicine. Many are also going to hospitals to purchase fever medications. People with fevers and flu-like symptoms are also swarming hospitals. Here you can see people crowd up in a Wuhan hospital. The same here in a Guangzhou hospital, Changzhou City People's Hospital in Chengdu, as well as Sichuan hospitals. Some hospitals are getting so full that people are getting IV drips in their cars. Either that or just out on the street. It's complete chaos at China's hospitals. Many are reporting positive cases everywhere. While rising COVID cases are inevitable, keep in mind that not all of these people have COVID. Many could simply just have normal flu and fever cases. The problem is that the country's health system relies heavily upon hospitals. There's virtually no general practitioner system for primary care and no referral system to specialists. People get most of their health care through hospitals. With fears of increasing COVID cases, you bet tons of people without COVID are going to want to make sure they aren't infected. There are, of course, serious COVID cases and emergencies that require attention. That's why Chinese state media is urging people not to call emergency medical hotlines. They're also saying that those with asymptomatic infections don't need medication and that it's enough to rest at home. But Chinese people aren't used to treating themselves at home. They're used to going to a clinic or hospital for health care. People also have very little information to understand the virus and make decisions based on scientific evidence. And you can't really blame them. The Chinese Communist Party has been constantly censoring information about COVID and peddling conspiracy theories for political reasons. Yet somehow Western media and experts still won't admit that it was a mistake to trust China's COVID policies. You know, as we've reported on China's zero COVID policy over the years, many of you have suggested the CCP just stop testing for COVID. That way, they won't know how many people are infected and they can declare zero COVID a success. Well, they did not do that. Partly because all the testing was propaganda that the CCP's zero COVID policy was working, and partly because the CCP built a massive testing bureaucracy that provided jobs and lots of money for whichever party officials were involved with these COVID testing companies. But now, as part of their optimizing COVID restrictions, the party is dismantling the testing system, which means that even as a huge COVID wave is hitting China, the official numbers won't show it. And this episode has been sponsored by Mova Globes. Mova Globes are great. I love this technology. It spins automatically, powered by ambient sunlight. When you pick it up, it keeps spinning. And when you put it back on its base, it will correct its motion. Mova has dozens of other cool designs too, and they're made in Taiwan, not China. Right now, Mova Globes has a special offer for our viewers. I put details in the description below. Apply our special code CHINAUNCENSORED at checkout to get the extra savings. And when you buy a Mova Globe, you'll also be supporting your favorite show about China. So click below to check out Mova Globes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.